Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are taking a seriously breathtaking journey. I want you to literally imagine standing in the freezing, thin air of the Himalayas. You're surrounded by these absolutely massive 6,749-meter peaks. Got it? Now imagine starting this relentless descent, just following gravity and ancient rivers all the way down until you hit the warm, humid shores of the South China Sea. That's the epic trip we're taking today, exploring China's incredibly diverse southern frontier. China is not one landscape, one culture, or one story. We so often think of this massive country in singular terms, right? Like we picture Beijing's super modern skyline or maybe just the Great Wall. But our journey today, it's going to trace the rivers and ancient pathways that connect just an astounding diversity of people, climates, and histories. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the roadmap for our descent. We'll hit the gateway and ancient kingdoms, the highlands of the tea route, canyons and tropical frontiers, karst peaks and terraces, and finally to the South China Sea. So to really grasp this whole thing, we have to understand the physical geography of our route. We are mapping a literal and metaphorical descent. We're kicking things off near the sacred snow-capped Karagabo Peak, the roof of the world. From there, we drop into the Yunnan Guizhou highlands, averaging about 2,000 meters in altitude. And finally, we ride the geography all the way down to sea level. The land completely shapes the people, and as the land drops, well, everything changes. Section 1, Gateway and Ancient Kingdoms. Let's start our descent right here in the temperate highlands. 26. Yunnan province alone is home to 26 different ethnic minority groups. Why so many? Well, because this region is so incredibly mountainous, and historically isolated, it acted like a giant sanctuary. Over thousands of years, people migrating away from conflicts or expanding empires settled in these hidden highland valleys. They preserved their unique languages, their clothing, their traditions, ultimately making this China's most diverse frontier, hands down. Our first stop is the actual gateway, Kunming, known as the City of Eternal Spring and the home of the ancient Dayan Kingdom. Moving west, the history gets even deeper in Dali. Nestled right there between the Kongshan Mountains and Erhai Lake, Dali was actually its own independent kingdom from 937 to 1253 AD, ruled by the Bai people. Their culture is so tied to the land that actually, fun fact, the Chinese word for marble is literally Dali, named after the gorgeous stone found in these exact mountains. Section 2, Highlands of the Tea Route. Leaving Erhai Lake, we start tracing the ancient networks connecting these mountain kingdoms to the rest of the world. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer scale of the ancient tea horse road. It is staggering. Dating back over 1,000 years, this wasn't some easy stroll. It was a rugged, dangerous, and frankly exhausting caravan network linking Sichuan and Yunnan to Tibet and even pushing all the way down into India. The core of all this trade? Exchanging Yunnan's famous pu'er tea bricks for sturdy Tibetan ponies. These were war horses, absolutely vital for defending the empire against northern nomads. A hugely crucial hub on this treacherous route was Lijiang, sitting way up at 2,400 meters right beneath the glacier-capped Jade Dragon Snow Mountain. Lijiang is the absolute heartland of the Naxi people. Because of all the wealth flowing through the Tea Horse Road, this vibrant place managed to preserve some unbelievable cultural treasures, like ancient Tang and Song dynasty music and the Dongba script. Get this, it is the world's last living pictographic writing system still in active use today. It's a massive testament to how these mountains basically locked in and preserved ancient human history. Pushing even further up the road, we hit the Tibetan plateau and run into a wild collision of myth and reality. Back in 1933, British author James Hilton wrote a novel called Lost Horizon, and he invented this fictional utopian Himalayan valley called Shangri-La. Decades later, the real-world logging town of Zhongdian was facing a huge economic crisis when logging was banned. Their solution? Rebrand. In 2001, they successfully petitioned to literally rename their county Shangri-La. But this wasn't just some cheap tourist trap. It was actually a brilliant move that helped fund the revitalization of authentic Tibetan traditions, like gilding the magnificent Ganden Sumtsling Monastery and sparking a renewed local pride in Tibetan script and crafts. Section 3. Canyons and Tropical Frontiers. We leave the arid highlands and plunge straight down into dramatic, humid gorges. 3,000 meters. That is the astonishing average depth of the remote Nujiang Grand Canyon.
To put that into perspective for a second, this massive gorge totally rivals the Grand Canyon in the United States, yet it somehow remains one of China's most hidden and least known wildernesses.
The Nujiang Valley sits inside the spectacular Three Parallel Rivers region. Out here, the landscape is so vertical, so extreme, that communities have lived in profound isolation for centuries. For ethnic groups like the Lisu, just crossing the raging river meant strapping into these heart-stopping ancient slidewire crossings. It's a place where geography enforces absolute, thrilling seclusion.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens if we keep following the rivers south. The geography completely shifts. Welcome to Xishuangbanna. We have literally gone from snow-capped Tibetan monasteries to a humid, tropical rainforest teeming with wild Asian elephants. The vibe totally flips. Here, the Dai people practice Theravada Buddhism. And honestly, with the gilded temples, saffron-robed monks, and local dialects, it feels much closer to neighboring Southeast Asia than Tibetan.
Section 4, Karst Peaks and Terraces. Shifting our gaze eastward, the landscape transforms again into iconic topography. As the rivers widen out, we move into the misty, almost mystical realm of southern China. We pass through Guizhou, where traditional villages still cling to these ancient ways of life, before arriving at the surreal, towering karst limestone peaks of Guilin and Yangshu. You know the ones. These are those misty, gravity-defying mountains you always see in classical Chinese paintings. They were formed over millions of years as water just slowly dissolved the limestone plateaus. So the crucial point is how people adapted to this. Right amidst these rugged mountains, we find the Longji Rice Terraces. This perfectly captures the ultimate relationship between the people and this difficult southern frontier. To survive in a place with basically zero flatland, generations of farmers essentially engineer the mountains themselves. They carved steep slopes into these massive, fertile, mirrored steps that catch the rain and sustain life. It is literally human hands intimately transforming a harsh landscape.
Section 5, to the South China Sea. Finally, the rivers we've been following must reach their destination. All that water, all those intense trade routes, and all that rich culture funneled down from the mountains and spill right into Guangdong. This is the grand culmination. The isolated, ancient land routes of the T-Horse Road transition seamlessly into a massive, booming global maritime network. All the resources that flowed down from the highlands ultimately built the incredibly wealthy port cities of the Pearl River Delta.
Sitting right at the end of this massive geographical funnel is Cantonese culture. Because this region faced the sea, it became the launching pad, exporting Chinese heritage across the globe through a massive diaspora. And they took their absolute culinary mastery with them. Whether it's their globally recognized cuisine or the meticulously slow-simmered soups designed specifically to combat the region's intense coastal humidity, Guangdong represents the outward-facing result of everything that trickled down from the mountains.
When you look at this incredible maritime heritage, you really have to connect it back to the mountain origins we started with. And it brings us to a huge question I want you to think about. How does the relentless flow of geography, from freezing, isolated plateaus all the way to open, tropical oceans, shape the destiny and diversity of human civilization? Would the fierce independence of the ancient Dali kingdom or the massive global reach of Cantonese culture even exist without this specific, dramatic landscape dictating where they could go and how they could survive? As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this thought. China's story is written not only in its cities and monuments, but also in its mountains, rivers, villages, and people. We've traveled from the roof of the world down to sea level, traversing snow, jungle, and solid stone. I really hope this gives you an entirely new lens through which to view this magnificent, diverse region. The map of China is vast, and the journey to understand it, well, that's endless. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible descent, and keep exploring.